Pullman mayor. Haven't had one of these in over 20 years, so. My name is Deborah Olson. I will be the moderator this evening. We always start our programs by reading the League's nonpartisan statement. The League acts in support of or in opposition to selected governmental issues which its members have studied. It does not support or oppose candidates, factions, or political parties. The League's members as individuals are encouraged to work in a political party of their choice. To protect the League's nonpartisan policy, guidelines regarding political activities of the board of directors are frequently reviewed. The League of Women Voters of Pullman is fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and practice. These concepts are central to our current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. We acknowledge and honor the first people of the Palouse region and their descendants, including our neighbors, the Nez Perce, the Colville, and the Coeur d'Alene tribes. Okay, moving on, this forum will be also on Zoom and recorded. So it will be on our website. So pass the word around. If people who didn't make it, they can watch it there. Since it's been a while, let's review how things are done. We ask that you write your questions on the cards on your seats. You can ask as many questions, but please keep it to one per card. If you need more cards, just ask for them. When you finish, hold them up. They'll be collected and brought up here to the table where the sorters are. These people are crucial. They make sure I can read the questions. So I'm asking you to print as legibly as possible, and please, no microscopic print. Duplicate questions or questions on similar questions on a single topic will often be combined and paraphrased and combined into one question. So you may not hear the question you actually wrote. I will get to as many questions as possible, but we don't want to be here till 11 o'clock at night. For courtesy's sake, please turn off or mute your cell phones and refrain from clapping or booing. So let's begin. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks. We will start with Frances Benjamin, then Eileen Macoll, and then Deborah McNeil. So let's begin. Frances.
Thank you, Deb. And thank you, League of Women Voters Pullman, for this opportunity. And for those of you that have chosen to come out on this warm day when you could have done other things. So I'm Frances Benjamin, and I'm running for Pullman mayor. Heidi and I met in college, and we chose to stay in Pullman because of the people here and because it was a great place to raise a family. I've worked at WSU for over 35 years, designing psychological research and managing IT. I also lead research focused on political discrimination and civility, and I teach real estate. Heidi's a licensed mental health counselor and has her own practice here in Pullman. So my passion is that of helping people achieve their passions, connecting them to each other in the community, and also working to build our community together. Over the years, I've mentored over 100 high school students. I've taught and mentored over 100 entrepreneurs. Some of my computer leadership includes Pullman City Council, with Pullman Chamber, being over the Chili Bowl, past president of Kiwanis, president of the Community Council on Aging, and most recently, I led the first annual Three Forks River and Arts Festival. Together, we've advanced Pullman as a welcoming and diverse family-friendly community with a lot more to go. Often candidates focus on a single issue, but that's not the case for me. My leadership and passion for volunteering extends from youth mentoring to senior advocacy, from housing affordability and food security to economic development and resources for entrepreneurs. And as I've touched the lives of the people in Pullman, I've grown in my passion and vision for Pullman. My platform of leadership focuses to first, build a welcoming community, promote downtown vibrancy, support business growth, increase the arts, improve community health, and improve the environment. Thank you for your time. I look forward to our discussion tonight.
Eileen?
Good evening, and thanks for being here. You could be doing a lot of other things. I'm Eileen Macoll, and I came here as a freshman in the fall of 1973, and I have enjoyed every minute. I never looked back. I grew up in Seattle, and that was enough for me. I would never go back to the rat race. So Pullman is my home, and I've been here 50 years, basically. So I've done everything from working at Ace Hardware to painting theater scenery up at WSU Theater and many, many other things in between, which gives me a broad background and a broad base of knowing people in this community. And our community is ready to move forward. The plans for our new downtown are nearly complete, and we need to make sure that we keep up the current momentum and not lose focus. As we improve our Main Street and downtown, we must listen to what our residents and businesses are asking for, and especially listen to those most affected by both the product and the final project. However, there are other things, obvious things, that also need our attention. We need to fix the traffic congestion on Grand. Whether you have been in Pullman for 15 minutes, 50 years, like I have, you know this is a problem. Study after study, funded by taxpayers, have presented plenty of plans and proposals, none of which have been implemented or even tried. Red light running is rampant. And as we work to improve the walkability of our downtown, this is a dangerous reality we need to resolve. Empty buildings are a problem in many communities. At the Association of Washington Cities conference last week, I spoke to many council members that were doing something about empty buildings in their commercial areas. Washington state law is clear, and we have the legal tools to cure these eyesores. It is shameful that we have done nothing. We just have to get up the gumption to do it. We need a bypass, but we must focus on what is possible and not continue to dream about the impossible. This will take hard cash, heavy equipment, and a can-do attitude. Our friends in the county will work with us to make this happen. And what will be in our backyards? Our homes need to be protected and not crowded next to something unintended based on a line that was drawn on a map decades ago. We can take a hard look at our urban growth area and make the necessary changes to protect our home. Thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you. Deb?
Hello, I'm Deb McNeil, and you can go to debforpullman.org for all the basic information about me, my WSU career, well, as a student, and what I've done to date. What I'd like to do, though, is to share with you some experiences that changed the way I viewed the world. Teaching and administrative duties for 38 years changed my life. And I hope it changed the lives of some of the kids that I met and some of the teachers that I worked with. I learned, of course, flexibility, adapting, planning, all the RCWs, all the WACs, everything like that. And I might speak to that later as well. We were foster parents. And boy, is that an eye-opener. How do families get themselves wrapped up in the CPS system? When we learned a lot about the families in Pullman and a lot about how we can help them achieve a better way of going through things and how perhaps the city and the county can work with us. It's a hard job, and I would recommend it if you have the time. One of my greatest, most fun things besides teaching and foster parenting was the Quilted Heart. I had a brick and mortar store down here on the corner across the street, 17 years downtown. We started it 3 years at home, outgrew quickly, moved downtown. I became very knowledgeable about employees, payroll, inventory, taxes, B&O taxes sent to the state, not coming back, customer service, supply chain, even back 10 years ago. So I carry a very deep understanding of the continuing challenges faced by small businesses and physical businesses.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to start the questions, and I have a ton, including some that were sent to me by email. So I'm going to start with the first one one of the ones that came in through email, because it's kind of general and it will give you an idea of where these people stand. What are the mayor's responsibilities to the community? And we'll start with you, Francis.
So if we look at the city of Pullman, Pullman is a strong mayor city. And when I talk about that, there's different types of city organizations. Within a strong mayor, that means that the mayor is the one that is actually runs the city. The city council is tasked with being the visionary body that sets the vision that the mayor then carries out. So for the mayor really is the face of the city. The mayor is out there in front of people. The mayor is also responsible, and I feel, to be someone who everybody feels they can come talk to. That there's not winners and losers with the mayor, but that it's something that the mayor has an open door policy for everybody that's coming in, and the mayor is receptive to the community input.
Eileen?
It's the mayor's responsibility to listen and reflect what the community wants and needs, desires, and what is possible. Sometimes the mayor has to say we can, sometimes the mayor has to say we can't. But it's that listen and response and reflect, and then direct staff. A lot of research is pointed to by the mayor. The mayor says, well, let's do this. Let's take a look at that. What can we fix? And identify those problems. And like I say, I just gave you a laundry list of a lot of problems that we need to address immediately as we move, especially as we move into our downtown project. I intend to keep office hours on Thursday mornings before Kiwanis. And that by appointment, sorry, just can't have an open door. But we designated the mayor's conference room right inside the front door of City Hall. And I intend to make absolute use of that every single week, at least weekly office hours.
Deb?
Well, they pretty much told you what the mayor does or can do. I'd like to tell you that as mayor, I would be kind and respectful and considerate of all citizens, even the ones who disagree, the ones who come in hot-headed, those types of things. The door is always open if you can find me there, because my goal as mayor is to reach out into the community to talk with people who haven't necessarily been involved. And you go to where they are, the PTAs, the parks, the mom groups, the dad groups, the sporting groups that are raising our families. So yes, I'll be in the office, of course, but I want to make connections in the community with people who don't necessarily have the bandwidth or time to focus on what the city is doing. And then I really believe that as part of my experience, I can find the right people for the right job. So if you're thinking of a school bus driving down the road, you've got to make sure that every person in that school bus or in that city bus are in the right seat for them.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the first project you would like to take on as mayor? And we're going to start with Eileen for that one.
Yes, this is an easy one. We need to do something about that congested traffic on Grand. We've got studies and studies. I've got boxes full of studies under my desk. We need to look at those. We need to dredge back through those. A lot of them you can't even find on the city archive anymore, but I'm a pack rat, so I've got hard copy and print on a lot of those and see what we can do. Council recommended 3 years ago that we retime the lights, that we do just that. Simple, inexpensive, no cost, just retime the lights. Do some experimenting, see what works, see what doesn't work, and make that happen, because that is the #1 frustration that people tell me about with Pullman is, I mean, we've got a lot of situations, this as any city does, but it's that traffic on Grand that starts at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and makes everybody's life miserable until about 5:30. That's my #1 project.
Deb?
My #1 project, along with all the other projects we're going to fight for #1, is making sure that the downtown gets taken care of in a swift and organized way. And so that it creates as little harm to our businesses and to our community as possible. We have a great plan. I agree with Eileen. Grand Avenue is a disaster, and we should probably take care of it before WASDOT does it for us.
Thank you. The number one project that is happening is the downtown. And that downtown piece that is already programmed, we already have the money designed for it. That's going to do the traffic calming. It's also going to do the street lights. So, and the timings, those are already in place. So I'm actually looking beyond that one. And the one that I want to talk about is my main project would be in-town rail banking. I feel that we need our current railroad that runs through town really is underutilized. And if you look at it, it's just weeds that are grown up. If we can work with the legislature to get that rail banked, we'd be able to extend the green space that's at the city playfields and actually add in more green space there. We'd be able to put in a trail that goes from Pine Street Plaza all the way to Rainey Park rather than having to go down to the visitor center. We'd be able to help the depot finish their area. We'd be able to put in a community gathering place that's just outside this space here into Scout Park and extend it. And we'd also, and most important to me, is we'd be able to put a park in on the north end of town, which really is underutilized for parks.
Thank you. I think I've got a couple questions here. Where did it go? I just put it down somewhere.
You want me to write the question?
Well, I've got three that are sort of related, and they're all for the renewal of downtown. I'm gonna, since that just came up. So what is your stand on renewal plans for downtown? And specifically, could you address the empty storefront? And I'm gonna start with Deb.
Thank you for that. The downtown is a place where community needs to go and gather. And they do gather there once in a while. And they do like being downtown and just meeting other people and talking, visiting, having coffee, eating some of the best pastries around, by the way. And so we follow a plan. There's going to be some glitches. Some people aren't going to like it. And some things we're going to find that we weren't counting on. So whatever the city has planned and the city council has agreed to, we will work through that and we will make sure that it is being taken care of. We do have the rail banking downtown, of course. We do have the bike issues, the bike paths, that type of thing. And those all need to be resolved as part of that downtown situation.
Thank you. The downtown really is a multifaceted. There's a lot that needs to be done related to the downtown. The areas that I'm currently already working in is for the Pullman Downtown Association. I chair the Economic Vitality Committee, and that committee is focused with how do we help businesses be successful downtown? How do we attract businesses? And how do we help our current businesses be successful? And so with that committee, we're working on business toolboxes, ways in order to provide resources for businesses to help in order to energize and get businesses down there. As a part of the downtown project, we're also looking at how do we quiet the streets. And so the downtown project will slow those down and will help that way. I'm also have been for the last couple of years on a wayfinding committee that's looking at how do we do better job wayfinding signage, but is multimodal. So it is not just for vehicles, but also for bikes and for people to find their way around the downtown. And the other thing I'm working on is a Safe Routes project for getting people from the College Hill down to the downtown in order to get more activity down there.
I think the last message we got was from the consultants was our design is about 90% complete. That means it's not absolutely written in stone. And there are still some things that some of the downtown businesses have strongly expressed that they want and that are sort of dear to my heart too, because of the neighborhood that I grew up in. We need a mid-block crosswalk that can be added. We would like another speed table that can be added. We'd like a walk all ways at one of the intersections. About the empty buildings, you've already heard me say what I think we need to do about the empty buildings. I had the printout, but my printer died. If you go to RCW 35.80.010, it says exactly what we can do with empty buildings. There's a lot of latitude there. We just have to do it. The state has given the permission, the state anyway, that yes, those are some things that we cannot do. This is a jurisdiction that falls to municipalities should they choose it. And the companion piece to that is RCW 35.80A.010. Please read those, check those out. We can do this. All we got to do is just do it. Nothing is written in stone. We do not have to go through the Department of Transportation on every last little change. A lot of that, we are autonomous.
Okay, hang on to the mic because you're up first. I'm going to switch topics. What further water restrictions would work best in Pullman?
We don't know that yet. We need to get the pumping data that is going to be available to us, should be hopefully the first of this next quarter. And we'll look at that pumping data and see where we are. If we're reaching our targets, we're going to leave things the way they are. And that's our goal, is to maintain that status. And heard an amazing thing from Genie. They're trying to remove their water management system. I couldn't believe it. But so anyway, yeah, that's what we need to do first, is look at that data, find out if we're meeting those pumping goals, and find out from there. Well, without that data, I really couldn't answer that question. There's a couple of little things maybe that we could tweak. For one thing, we could make it clearer. The legislation was not particularly, the ordinance, was not particularly clear. We could tidy up some of that language, and I've been working with Chris Reisenauer on that somewhat, and make it easier for people to understand. And then can somebody do something about my neighbor? I mean, oh golly.
Deb?
The water ordinance was a little confusing, but it's a start. And we need to continue looking at the sustainability that we can carry on in this town with the water we have, so that we're not adding anything that's going to drastically change that water. We need to be viable and make sure that we're doing what's best for our environment and working that direction in terms of water usage. Also working with the university as well, because there are a lot of kids up there.
Thank you. If we look at the water, there's two sides to it. One is a conservation side, and then the other side is, are there other ways in which we can collect water that doesn't require us to take it out of the aquifer? Right now, our aquifer is continuing in a decline. We need to change that and actually work in order to stabilize our aquifer. One of the things is with the water restrictions and the watering, they're trying to work that way. Things that I feel that as personally, what we need to look at is individually, we need to look at ways to for conservation. This year, I've taken out my front lawn and I'm putting in Y-scape. So it needs to be watered this year, but then after this year, it doesn't have to be watered. And so I think those are steps that as individuals, we need to make. We need to look at low flow toilets and what are ways in which we can reduce our individual water use, but that won't get us the whole way. We're also going to need to look at a larger project of water capture.
Okay. In a recent survey, Pullman residents called on the city to lead on actions to address climate change causes and impacts. Climate change causes and impacts. How will you further Pullman's stated goal to produce a climate action plan with emissions reduction targets and policy to reach those? And who hasn't started? I think it's your turn, yes.
I get the tough ones. Not that it's tough. I believe that the city really welcomed that climate study. And they really, I think the city is very willing to adopt many of those things. I also think we have the best experts in all of that right here in Pullman and on the Hill. And so we should use that expertise and think about what they can do to help us. They're the ones that do the research. They're the ones that see what other towns are doing. They're the ones that can come in and say, okay, we're working on this new way of taking care of the aquifer. Okay, let's listen to it. Let's work with our experts to take care of our water issues.
Thank you. The work that the city's done so far with the climate changes, it's really looking at what can the city itself do in order to reduce. But there's two sides to it. One is what does the city do? And then there's what do the residents do? And I think there's work that the city's doing right now to see what are the things that they can do to reduce their footprint and the impact. But we do need to take the next step and actually look at how do we help get our citizens to make wise choices. And with water, the city had to finally go to this is the rule. You may have to get to that point as we look at this issue, which is one that I want to leave our climate better for the next generation and for the generation after that, just like with water. And that's something that we need to have this mindset of thinking about the impact of our choices and what it has on future generations.
Eileen, you need to hear it again.
No, we're good. We work a lot with WSU. We have, I've been serving on PBOC for 5 or 6 years now. It's amazing the work that's being done at WSU and at the University of Idaho in understanding our water systems and how they work together. And I think the people of Pullman and Moscow, but especially of Pullman, because I have better numbers for Pullman, are doing a terrific job of conserving. The low flow toilets have been a huge success. We need to pat ourselves on the back and not just beat ourselves up over this one, and take that and go forward with it. Generally, you consider about 120 gallons per person per day is kind of a national average. We're less than 80. Well, no, we're about 82 here in Pullman per gallons per day per individual persons. And that's an amazing statistic. WSU is using 200 million gallons a year less than they did 20 years ago. And that is an astounding number. We're doing a real good job on that. If we trust our researchers, like Deb suggested, and keep that going, we should be way ahead of the nation in that area of sustainability.
Okay, thank you. This should be an easy one. If the biodiesel plant had not been dropped, would you have supported the rezone? And we'll start with you, Francis.
It'll be a short answer. So first of all, for on council, when you're making a decision, or mayor, if you're breaking a tie vote, then it needs to be then your decision can't be based on just personal feelings, but it needs to be based on what is the rule of the law. You're sitting there in a judicial matter similar to in a court system. Because nothing came to us, I can't give you an answer, because it has to be, and that's the fact. It is, for me to give you an answer would mean if somebody was to present that to me at a future date, then I would have to recuse myself from the vote, because I've already made a decision not based on what the actual facts and rules are.
Eileen?
Okay.
Well, I'm mixing it up.
Okay. There were several silver linings to that. And again, what Francis said, the technicality of that is absolutely correct, what he said. But there were silver linings were that people got involved and people understood the process. This rezone process is a real challenge. And if people don't understand the process and don't understand where and when they can be effective, then all of a sudden something happens to them. Something appears in their backyard that they don't need, they don't want, and they feel that they didn't have any say-so in it. The fact that we had the opportunity to educate people as they were formulating their opinions and and taking action was a real silver lining. And for things of this, like in the future, people are going to know, people are going to understand it better. We haven't had a major rezone that affects the where people live since some of the down zones that happened on, or didn't happen on College Hill way back when. And that's where I learned the ropes on this almost 20 years ago. So I thought it was a great opportunity to educate people as to how they can be effective and influence what they need to have happen in their backyard.
Deb?
Well, I agree with what Eileen said in terms of getting people involved. But I also read the Daily News today, and I wanted to make the announcement, if you have not read the Daily News, is that the Ag Tech OS company will be holding a press conference tomorrow at Zeppo's at 3:00. Now, they're not suggesting that they ask for rezoning here, but there are other things coming down the road. So I think if you're interested, you should probably attend that press conference.
Thank you. Eileen, this next question will go to you first. Huh? I know. As long as everybody gets a chance, it's the important thing. When you think about affordable housing, what comes to mind as a priority for our town?
As we all know, this is really tough. The priority for our town is, I feel that it's multi-generational housing. Seniors come here, they bring their grown children here, and vice versa. We see that a lot. I think looking towards multi-generational housing, so grandma can take care of the kids, grandpa can go fishing with the boys. That's the focus, and those may be townhouses. That is the kind of affordable housing solutions that we need to look towards. I think multi-generational housing is going to be the most efficient, the most effective, and the best way for the federal programs, the state programs that make affordable housing possible, and the funding mechanisms that are out there that serve the widest variety of our community, which I think is multi-generational housing.
Deb?
The definition to affordable housing is 30% of your gross income. Think about that. That is tough to afford a house if you're only counting on 30%. So beyond that is, do we have housing available? Do we have housing for the people who come in to work at Schweitzer or the city or the school district or the hospital? Do we have housing available to the professors and the support staff up on campus? Would be nice if they all lived here and they didn't have to take their money or take our money to Idaho. So there have to be several different options, and options that only our community can tell us what is needed. But I do believe that it's going to get smaller housing, and it's going to be maybe some multi-generational, depending on how well we can take care of our seniors in their homes. And it will also depend on the environment in which we choose to grow these houses, so to speak. Growing a house is like a plant. Do we have enough water? Do we have enough green space, but just enough? And do we have xeriscape? And do we have the places that we can afford to, or the contractors that will do some of the smaller building, because it can be more expensive.
Thank you. When we're looking at affordable housing, there's two different areas that you can look at. One is the rental side and one of the other is the ownership side. If we look at our numbers right now of where we are for the number of rental units that we have in town and the number that are in the queue being built, we actually have enough rental housing to handle the people that want to rent. Where our gap is those that want to own. And as we're looking at affordable housing around ownership, there's a number of areas that I've heard from. One is from our senior community that want to downsize, that they're having that for them to downsize, it almost costs them more than just keeping the home they have, and that shouldn't be the case. And so we need to find way to get housing stock for our seniors to be able to downsize. ADU units, so accessory dwelling units, is something that I think we need to look at. And as Eileen talked about, the townhouses, or others might know them as row houses. What that is it's a smaller lot size, smaller home. And what that does is that gets us into the property earlier. The other piece that I feel that we should really look at is a land trust also in order to help in this process.
Okay, Deb, we're going to start with you on this one. How do you see yourself and the city working to support our K-12 students?
Our students obviously are probably the most important kids around, and families struggle to make ends meet with them all the time. So working with families, working with the schools, the school district, the city could very much, I mean, if you put the city services and the city and the school services on a grid on top of each other, you would think they were almost identical. So how can we meet the needs of the schools from the city? And is it transit? Is it taking care of after school programs? Which, by the way, our parks department does a fantastic job. Is it just sitting down with each other every month and developing that relationship with the superintendent or the principals or the PTAs?
Francis?
Thank you. Our K through 12 is something that's near and dear to my heart. As a parent, you really do care about the kids that grow up and watching your friends and your neighbors with your kids. For me right now, resilience is the first thing that I feel that we really need to work to help our kids coming out of COVID. There's a lot of challenges that way. And so we need to help build resilience. We need to improve mental health opportunities for them. I feel we also need to also provide leadership opportunities. And I think about Kiwanis and the youth organizations that teach leadership. I have, for the last 15 years, been a mentor for high school students. And in fact, this last year I was mentoring them in the WSU Business Plan competition. And it was my joy when one of my high school teams actually beat out all of the college teams in one of the positions, which is pretty cool. One of the things that also 2040 has been working with the school on is mentoring programs, and how do we get people that want to be able to be a mentor, be able to connect into it. Thank you.
Eileen?
The city has an adjunct role, of course, with K through 12 because the school system is somewhat autonomous. How we can support that is the peripherals. We can make sure that as Deb touched on, that transportation system is working for all students and faculty and staff that work at our. There's a lot of people that necessarily might not want to commute with a car at work at our public schools. The peripheral organizations like Kiwanis, as Francis mentioned, and some of the other ones that support 4-H, that sort of thing, FFA, and make space for them. If they need space, make space for them. We've got space in City Hall. That's why we built it for those things. And move those programs forward, support them. Make sure that our food bank, make sure that the CAC has the opportunities to open their doors to parents. And the supporting parents is we all talk about supporting kids, and that's great, but it really starts with the parents. You got to be able to find ways to support the parents. Improving communication between the city and the school district that's been a thing. And that's one of the things that we really can work on and really make some improvements in.
Thank you. Francis, you're going to start this one. This is a question that was sent to me ahead of time, so I'm going to read it. A grassroots study is being suggested for the Port of Whitman County Commissioners and the City Councils of Colfax, Albion, and Pullman to jointly determine the feasibility and desirability of rail banking the CAP, the Colfax, Albion, Pullman rail corridor that is already owned by the state. Do you support such a feasibility study?
Well, I've already talked about rail banking and the importance of in-town rail banking. The city council previously in past years, actually as one of their goals was supporting the CAP trail. We did, based on conversations we had with legislators, pull back and said, let's start with the in-town and let's focus there. I do feel that if we could rail bank all the way to Colfax and have a CAP trail, it would be phenomenal for our community. It would be a great connector between communities and also would be provide opportunity for those that want to have more miles of trail. So it's something that's very good. I know right now I'm focused on the in-town piece, but I know Rich is probably the one that submitted this because this is his passion. But I support him in the work that he's doing with this.
Eileen?
A feasibility study can be looked at in two ways. It can be looked at as a place to start or a place for a project to go to die. And that's the knife edge that we would be on with a feasibility study, because sometimes they're very expensive and don't produce a lot more heat than light. I would have to look at some cost estimates as to what they think this feasibility study is going to cost. The money might be better spent elsewhere. And again, at the AWC conference this last week, I had some great suggestions from some people in the Snohomish area that are building trails in some really innovative ways. And they suggested that we talk to the transportation committee, that we work specifically with Tim Ormsby, who's a buddy of mine from Spokane, and look at all the cougars that are serving in the state legislature, and there's a lot of them, and hit those people and say, remember when, and see if we can get a little bit of nostalgia to tickle them. So this is a multi-pronged approach. We need to be really careful when you start throwing around that term feasibility study. Rich, I know, I believe, I want this as much as anybody, but we got to be able to make sure that we're using, if we got one punch, we got to use it in the right place or take a multi-pronged approach. These are difficult decisions, very strategic, and they're going to take a lot of work on the ground in Olympia.
Deb?
I think they said it all. I still have a little time though.
Okay.
Rail banking is, it could be a great tourist issue for us, good issue. It could be a great bringing together of communities. But as both the other candidates said, the feasibility study is important in some respects. And there are so many hands in this bucket. We have to be very careful about how we go about looking at it, affording it, and making sure that we aren't ticking somebody off that has an ego.
Thank you. Eileen, you can start this round. How would you make Pullman inclusive for all, including students and minorities?
As I said in my opening remarks, and I will say again in my closing remarks, we need to listen to a broader aspect of people. It seems to me, having been involved, in landlord-tenant issues previous to my tenure on the council, is that it seems like we listen to the same, what one of my favorite books, 13 Ways to Kill Your Community, some of you are familiar with it, they call the same 10 people. We listen to the same 10 people. We listen to the same 6 people. And they're all my age and they're all white. And that's not necessarily the way to go. We need to look out and find those fresh voices, find those fresh eyes. You'll hear me say this again in my closing remarks. We need to move beyond who the same 10 people are. That's the number one thing we need to do. Reach out to those communities of color, communities of faith, communities that are younger, communities that maybe even are octogenarians and then above that as well. So that's what we need to do, is look for fresh eyes and new ways of seeing and hearing that we have not explored before, because we have a tendency to do the same thing over and over again, and we're trying to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you. Deb?
Well, if we start out with a welcoming neighborhood and you get to know all your neighbors, then you're getting to know all your neighbors, whatever group they belong to. And is it a group? is it just another human being that we need to watch out for, take care of, and work together as a neighborhood? So I'm suggesting that we do smaller neighborhood gatherings, that people in each small neighborhood have the ability to meet. I mean, it sounds a little hokey, but it's worked in the past, so I'm not sure it'll work in the future, but I'm pretty sure. You meet your neighbors out front, you meet your neighbors in the back, you meet your neighbors on the sides, you have small blocks, you help them with something if they need it. You can have short gatherings, you can just get to know your neighbors. And whether they come from a diverse group or any kind of group, a different faith group, the baseline here is to know your neighbors.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you. I feel that our differences is really what makes us better, and understanding people that have differences and having those conversations is critical and important. Things that I previously worked on, is Deb was talking about Pullman 2040 pre-COVID, we did hill parties where we actually did work to get people to know their neighbors and get to meet their neighbors. We have a welcoming committee in which we're working on different ways in order to make Pullman more welcoming, whether it's for our seniors, so for increasing senior amenities, or whether it's for different cultures in that way. The thing that for me, and I talk about a welcoming community, and the reason why this is so important to me is I was earlier today on a call I'm on a state board for a DEIB committee for the Association of Washington Cities, and was listening to other council members and mayors that were talking about individuals who had death threats because they were trying to be welcoming, or a house that was being burned down because of it. I don't want Pullman to go that direction. I feel we need to keep Pullman special, and the way to do that is to increase the appreciation of those that are different.
Thank you. So Deb, you start this one.
Okay.
Is Pullman a college town or a town with a college?
It's a town with a college. Here's the deal. And I'm a graduate of WSU. I left for 1 year, had to come back because I had to marry my husband. Well, I didn't have to, but we did. Sorry. Thank you, Jack. We need each other. The college needs the community needs college. And how do we work together to provide a smooth relationship between the two that allows for us to build this town and to provide for the students so that they want to come home again, so to speak. And I do know there are many of these kids that have grown up in Pullman have moved away, and they are so wanting to come back. So yes, it's a community with a university. We just happen to have enough water for them to start in the first place.
Thank you, Francis.
Well, when I moved here, it was definitely a college town. And what's happened is as Pullman has grown in size, as our businesses have matured, think about SEL, our hospital, our healthcare network, we really have expanded to where Pullman is. It's not that Pullman is no longer WSU, but Pullman is actually expanded, and it's more than WSU. And so that's where I look at is Pullman is more than WSU. And we need to think in that context. Decisions can't be made just based on one organization or one entity within our city. We need to think about all of our residents and the impact that each of our decisions make on everybody.
Eileen?
I like to think of it, I don't like the term college town. I like to use the term university city. Because at a population of effectively 40,000 people, we're a small city with a university there. And I am proud of the designation of Washington State University. We haven't been a college in a very long time. And I think that's important to emphasize. I think that's important to get that idea in our heads. In an ideal world, we would wake up tomorrow and nobody would use the term college town, but that's not going to happen. But this is a university. This is a research university. This is a world-class university. And we've got a world-class community to go along with it. And we need to start acting like that. We need to have pride in who we are and what we are. At 35 to 40,000 people, we've got big city issues to start to address in terms of water, in terms of utilities, in terms of logistics, in terms of how we plat our streets, our little village roads. We have undersized roads in so many communities because we kowtowed to developers and allowed them to build roads that are too narrow. You talk to our fire service and they'll tell you about those narrow roads. So there's a lot of things that we need to go big city on and do it now.
Thank you. Okay, so it's Francis's turn. I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. What is your biggest strength? What is your biggest weakness? And how would these affect in your role as mayor?
I would say my biggest strength is also my biggest weakness is I care about people, and I don't want to disappoint people. I want to help people be successful. I want for our community to be successful, but at the same time, there's times I have to take a step back and say, okay, what's for the good of the whole community as opposed to a single individual, and that's where I would say my strengths and weaknesses are.
Eileen?
Yeah, I'll kind of chime in on that. Both my strength and my weakness is I tell the truth. I am data driven and you'll get it straight from the hip from me. I'm going to be polite. I'm going to be diplomatic, but you're going to get it straight. And as another weakness that I've been dying to say this at a community forum, should I become mayor, probably the toughest thing that it's going to happen with the city staff is they're going to have to get used to my sense of humor. I can be a little on the edge, I can be a little rough, and then every once in a while I have to be reminded to cool it a little bit. But those are my strengths and my weaknesses. I will be telling you the truth, and I will be polite and kind about it, but it will be the truth, and it'll be researched and well-reasoned.
Yep.
I think my strength is listening, and not just listening, but hearing what someone has to say. To listen is easy, but to hear what they really mean is harder. So I believe that is one of my strengths. I also believe that a weakness of mine, the mayor's job is a part-time job. Glenn reminded me of that the other day, and I'm going, I don't know what a part-time job is like. So anytime I was teaching, anytime I was doing the business, it was always doing what I could to make it work and be better for other people. So I believe probably my weakness will be that part-time job may fall into a full-time job, but I'm ready for it and the family's ready for it. And there are no to-do lists because of that. So that's a, the to-do list at home. So as I leave off to work, there's no list, no time to write that list. So that's my weakness, is just putting more effort into it than what it's accounted for.
Thank you. We're going to move on to closing remarks because it's getting up on the 8 o'clock hour. There's a whole bunch of questions that didn't get answered. I'm sorry. Talk to the candidates. That's what I suggest. If you want to know something, talk to them. We will have, each of the candidates will have 2 minutes for closing remarks, and we're going to start with you, Francis.
Thank you. So thank you, Deb and League of Women Voters Pullman, for this opportunity to be here, and for those that have made it a point to come out here this night. I'm Francis Benjamin. I'm running for mayor, and I'm doing it because I believe Pullman is a great place to live, and together I believe we can make it even better. I'm dedicated and committed to Pullman, and it's really been my pleasure to serve alongside a number of passionate, enthusiastic Pullmanites. My approaches is one, first of all, I'm authentic. I'm a known quantity. I've You've watched my leadership for 25 years. I care about you and our community. I'm a collaborator. I believe that together we can achieve the best solution, and I don't need to take the credit. Innovation is also the other thing. I need to, where I continue to strive to improve. My leadership, I've talked about a number of different areas within leadership that I've been involved with. And whether it's looking at from the city, from the community, as it relates to regional or even across the state, in the areas of business, legislative advocacy, environment, human rights, diversity, welcoming youth. I've talked about a number of these things. And so I hope you hear that. And I have ambitious plans with building a welcoming community, promoting downtown vibrancy, supporting business growth, increasing the arts, improving community health, and also the environment. There's definitely more that I'd like to be able to share with you, but there's just not time. Please pick up one of my flyers here or go to my website, benjaminforpullman.com, in order to get more information. I look forward to talking with each one of you more about the opportunities that are before us that we can work together. So I'm Francis Benjamin. I appreciate your vote for Pullman Mayor. Please join me as we build our community together.
Eileen, 2 minutes.
This election is about a lot of things, but in my mind, the biggest thing is about choosing between progress or the past. It's a choice between realization or retreat, and a choice between success or stagnation. It's time for Pullman to be Pullman. I love my Cougars. I bleed Cougar Crimson just like many of the rest of you, but we are Pullman. We are not Moscow, either Moscow. We do not need to be Leavenworth, either one of those either. We need to seek out new voices and those with fresh eyes and fresh outlooks, and ask ourselves, what will Pullman be in 10 years when my grandnieces and grandnephews come to WSU? Building and planning are one thing, but also, what is our narrative? What is our story? The truth of our history, our heritage, and our authentic reality. And how are we going to reflect that reality from Main Street to Martin Stadium? Let's figure it out. Let's go get it without apology or endless second guessing. We are so blessed as a region with natural beauty and resources, and as a people with diversity and the energy to bring about a bright future. Let's go figure it out and let's go get it. I would be delighted to have you honor me with your vote. Let's move it forward.
Thank you. Deb?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for this opportunity, and for the candidates, the other candidates that are putting themselves out. It's a tough job. And what I'd like to say is I'm not experienced in the city yet, but they aren't experienced in the schools yet. So what do you get with me? You get an authentic person who is kind and considerate, will listen to your ideas. I will work problem solving, creative problem solving, working with the experts, but also coming up with fresh ideas. I have never been on the city council before. Do you need to be on the city council to be a good mayor? So the question is, what relationship building can I bring to this town and to move it forward? The best way to really know if you think, if you want to think more about what I have that it would be good. I'm sorry. The best way to know if you think I have what it takes, contact me personally, set up a meet and greet. So far, there'll be 15 for me so far for the primaries. Walk with me while canvassing. I love this town. I've lived here for a very, very long time, and I believe I'm your candidate to move us forward from a big town with growing pains to a bright, welcoming, and shiny little city.
I would like to thank everyone who attended, especially the candidates. And thank you all for your wonderful questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to them all, but What time is it time? Before we adjourn, I want to remind everyone, there is still time to register to vote if you haven't registered. You can do that right here. I have a QR code and registration forms. Also, the final date to register online or by mail is July 24th. Ballots will begin to be mailed on Friday, July 14th, and Election Day is August 1st. So please vote. Thank you very much. Oh.